Reservoir Dogs is a crime film and is directed by Quentin Tarantino and stars Michael Madsen, Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, and Steve Buscemi. And the film follows the aftermath of a heist gone wrong. As you can see, I'm joined by a couple of guests. This review is the first of a series of reviews where me and Film Guru will cover the films of Quentin Tarantino, ranging from Reservoir Dogs to The Hateful Eight in the lead up to his new film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So this is generally considered one of the greatest films of all time, and it holds up in some of our eyes, and by some I mean me, him, and him. Alex, what did you think of this movie?
I liked it. I liked it. I thought it was a really solid movie. I just don't feel like, for me, it's a little bit too overhyped. I just felt like it didn't live to what I was expecting from it, from hearing from everyone else about how much of a masterpiece it really was. But I wouldn't say it's a bad movie by any chance, but I felt like it was a solid film, but not amazing at all.
Yeah, like, I've got to be honest, like, I love the film, but I do admit it is a little bit slow in some places, like, especially near the start, because it does take a while for things, get going, but then that's generally what Tarantino does. Like, he has a very slow pacing throughout his films, but it's the dialogue that makes the scenes interesting.
Well, I think too, with this, you got to give it to him, it's his first film. It took him 10 years. He wrote 2 previous scripts that he sold, and this was the first time he actually got to direct, and I think from that standpoint, how hard he fought and the actors he got in, it's quite an achievement. But looking at that now compared to his other films, it doesn't look as grand or as great as the other films, but it's his beginnings. Like, without that film, we wouldn't have half the movies we have now.
Yeah, I agree. If that were my first major film, I'd be really proud. Because there are a lot of unique staples on the film that would have made it stand out in the time, and it would still stand out to this day. Watching it over again, I can admit that, I see why I loved it in the first place. I can see the natural dialogue that just flows throughout the story. But like I was saying earlier, there are a lot of detours with the narrative, and at sometimes it can sort of be exhausting. It can sort of feel like, why am I following this character for so long? But it still works in the sense of the story.
Yeah, I felt the same way. That was probably my biggest complaint of it. I felt like it was just going so many cutaways to different kind of characters. I kind of lost it a bit, and that was kind of my major gripe with it.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I think the acting's really damn good, especially for his first film and stuff like that, and just what they were able to do with probably not a lot with this film.
Yeah.
And I felt like it's a very good film for his very first film, but I just felt like, for me, it was just a tiny bit overhyped.
Yeah, going on your criticisms about this film being a bit over the place, it is a precursor to Pulp Fiction, as that film as well jumps over the place. Although that film is better structured, and I do admit, this film, it does hold on one scene for a long time, and then it's cuts away to a quick scene, comes back to a long scene, quick scene, that sort of thing. So it is a bit of a jumbled mess in a way, but for me, I still found it cohesive enough to follow it easily.
Well, I think too, he, like all of his scripts, it's like a book. He writes the scripts like a book, so you'll be introduced to someone, and then we'll have a backstory about something else, and then we'll come back to where we are, and then we'll meet the others. And they sort of had to do that with this in an interesting way, because we don't actually get to see the heist happen. It's all about talked about. It's all about what they achieve outside of that, but it's also the fact that it was made for a small budget, and there's only probably 3 locations that they use, and most of it takes place in the warehouse. So I think in the way he did it, he was trying to make it sort of interesting, because if it was just straight from the beginning to end, I don't think it would have been as interesting as where we come into it and where we meet the other characters.
Yeah.
But it can be a bit jarring, I do understand that.
Yeah. I think of all of Tarantino's films, this one feels like the closest to being, possible stage play.
When you said that, I really envisioned that. Yeah, I can really see that happening too.
Because, with that warehouse location, we're there for a good 80% of the movie. Everywhere else, it's either outside, an office building or office space, whatever, in a car. But we're in this warehouse for a damn long time.
I love how it really subverts expectations. It's a heist movie where you don't see the heist.
Yeah.
I did like that,
And I accept that that's probably due to the budget, but I like how, we don't have to see what happened to understand what happened because we get it through the dialogue of the characters.
Yeah, like definitely Tarantino's a master of writing, because any other screenwriter, they wouldn't have explained the heist as well. And with the little details he adds, he definitely makes the heist believable, so us, the viewers, can believe that this heist actually happened the way they described it.
And this sort of film really cements him in as a genre filmmaker, because he started with a heist, and a lot of the early movies are sort of like that. Then he goes on to different genres with samurai movies and westerns and war films, but this was sort of the beginning of the genre films, and that it showed how he would make films ultimately. And he sort of became a rock star filmmaker because of that, and Pulp Fiction, because it was, no one had ever seen anyone do that. And he took a lot from other films, and you can see that throughout his career and his films, but he adds his own style and flair to them, which makes them a bit more interesting than they originally were.
Regarding the standouts in the film, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, and Steve Buscemi are the best actors in the film. These roles specifically have the most memorable lines and iconic moments as well. Like with Michael Madsen, the most iconic moment in this film for him is the ear-cutting scene.
And what you were saying a minute ago about the acting, absolutely. Like, I think Michael Madsen's absolutely brilliant. He's a really cool and collected sort of character and has some really great moments. And like Tim Roth, I think, is fantastic as well. To pretty much act like you've been shot for nearly the entirety of a film is quite extraordinary. And to sit there with fake blood on you all that time, and to keep making it interesting each time you come back on screen. And Steve Buscemi is great because he comes in and he really talks about everything. You know, he talks about the heist, he talks about what went wrong, and that he believes this. So he sets everything in motion once you're in that factory, in the abandoned factory or whatever it is, where the majority of the film takes place. He really sets everything in motion of us and the characters trying to work out who the cop is and what actually happened and transpired.
If I did have to criticize the acting a little bit, I would say Harvey Keitel is a little bit wooden. Like the way he delivers some lines, it feels very forced, and like I said, it feels like they're acting out a stage play sort of. But I like Harvey Keitel, I think he's a good actor, but for me, his performance in this film is a little bit off.
The humour is pretty on point. You see all these little details in the dialogue where they sort of bicker and argue and share their own opinions. It's not forced. The jokes are there and they usually land, and like it's pretty funny when characters make fun of each other in the film, especially when they're arguing over who's Mr. White, who's Mr. Pink.
Overall, yeah, this is still a great movie. Some stuff is a little bit dated now, but it still holds up in its own way. The characters are interesting, the script is amazing, because anything Tarantino writes is like guaranteed gold.
Last thing I'll say is that I felt that, take it on face value, that it's his first film and he made something as solid as that. It may not be, I do feel like it was a bit overhyped from what I've heard from other people, but you can have to respect him for the fact that's his first movie. And to have a first movie like that is quite impressive.
As first features go, Tarantino directed probably one of the best ones.
I do have to give him respect, so I would probably give it a solid 7 out of 10.
For myself, it's a pretty solid film, but like I said earlier, with the detours and stuff, I found myself sort of losing attention at times, losing my focus. But I'm going to give it 8.5 because it's still, like we said, it's a really great film, and it works on a good dialogue level as well.
Well, my scoring system's out of 5, so I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. I still enjoyed it. It's not probably my favourite of Tarantino's films, but it's very solid, and for his first film's quite an achievement. And
I'm going to give Reservoir Dogs a 10 out of 10. As always, I'm NETX5. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my channel below. As always, I'm NETX5, and this was Patrick, Alex, and Sean. Thank you for watching.